Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at the differences between Suno AI and Apple AI inside Logic Pro. Specifically, I want to look at the drums. I think we could do this with all of the different AI instruments that Apple has inside Logic, but I want to keep this really narrowly focused because I think it can highlight some of the differences, some of the strengths of Suno, some of the strengths of Logic Pro, but maybe more importantly, it'll showcase the differences and some of the similarities between them. Okay, so I had Suno make me a song off of a simple prompt. It did the entire song. Let's listen just when the drums come in. It's a classic rock style.
Dust kicks up under tired boots.
Suno is great at taking a prompt and putting it into an entire song. All the different elements, the vocals, the drums, bass, all of that stuff. And at first glance, it's incredibly impressive because the end product that it comes out with is usually really good. Is it perfect? Not always. Does it have issues? Of course. But it's overall really impressive. When we want to actually take this down and dig a little deeper, though, it starts to fall apart just a little bit. For instance, I've got this song, I pulled it into the Suno studio, I did the stem extraction so I could actually look at all the parts. Let's listen to the drums soloed out here. You get a lot of artifacts. It doesn't sound like a really great recording of a drum kit, even though it's been created, not recorded. It just has a lot of maybe issues, and we have very little control over it. If we were to select a section of this and have Suno recreate, it would actually come up with a different sound. There wouldn't be the consistency from one section to the next. There are a lot of issues with it. Let's look at what this looks like inside Logic Pro for a moment, which I cannot do a prompt. I can't have it just make a whole song in like 5 seconds, but I've got my arrangement markers up at the top here. And if I create one of the session players and we'll do drums, all I have to do now is choose which of the genres I want to do, including different electronic styles and auxiliary style percussion. There's quite a big list here. Is it as big as what you can do in Suno? No, I don't think so. I think you can do additional styles in Suno that we don't have access to in here, but this is a really good list for a lot of styles that musicians are working in. So we'll just do that retro rock, kind of classic rock, and I'll say create. And it will give me drums across the entire song form that I created. An intro, a verse, a chorus, bridge, chorus, and outro. And each of those actually match that kind of style. A little bit of swing to this one. Now, if this were Suno, that's where we'd either have to restart or toss it away because we don't have any other abilities to control what the drums do in Suno, except from just creating a new one with a new prompt and seeing if the new prompt will give us something closer to what we want. Here, we have some differences. We can adjust all of the parameters. We can change the rhythm that it's playing, the instrumentation that it's using. We have a lot of things with like ghost notes and the feel and dynamics. We can change the overall part. And this is actually one big difference, I think. If I like that this verse is kind of what I want, I can turn the swing down so there's no swing. I'm feeling like, you know what, this is, okay, this is great. But maybe I want it to be more intense, have it be louder, but it's keeping all the other things the same or more complex. Or same exact pattern, but I want it to be the opposite of that. So I can come in and actually change all of those elements. There's no prompting system. That's one of the biggest differences. If Apple could just come up with a prompt system that says, type in what you want, it will analyze what you say and then adjust all the parameters to match what you're talking about, we wouldn't actually be that far off from Suno in terms of the overall drums. The other big thing in Logic that's helpful is that we actually have the kit. So say we don't like the snare sound. In Suno, you have to essentially start over every time, and there's very little response or responsiveness to indicators of different snare sounds. You can't say as much like, I want like a piccolo snare, I want a big snare, or I want a really deep, dark sounding snare. You can try those things, but that engine isn't sophisticated enough to really do that, to come up with the result that you're looking for. Here, I can select one and then choose a snare from the whole list, and also adjust the snare with tuning, dampening, and gain. So trade-off being we actually have to program the drums. In Suno, you don't have to. But in here, you have all of that control. So we're giving up the simplicity for control. That's always going to be the trade-off. Now, if you were to bring in a song into Logic and you're like, I really want to replace the drums, which we can kind of do in Suno. You can bring a song in, you can do the stem extract, you can select an area in the studio and have it add a drum kit. Well, we could do that here too. In fact, if you bring a song in, there's very sophisticated tempo options to make sure the tempo map of whatever you import would be what the drummer would play at. That's already there. That's in both of them. And then we can just make this drummer track, cut it up by the parts of the song, and then tweak it until we get what we want. In fact, one other thing that both of these things do, if I had another part, the snare and kick, I could actually have it follow a pattern off of a different track. And so if there's a song, it would actually do a snare and kick pattern based off of the information that's already there. That's something that Suno does very well. Now, we have it's like a simple version of it here, but it also works. The tempo would match, and then you could follow the actual content and have the snare and kick do something similar. Also, we have a lot of tempo options to make sure that that tempo performance is very similar. We have a groove track, which means that the drums will actually, in time, play with what's in the rest of the track, much in the same way that Suno is doing as well. Okay, which of them is better? Well, it gets a little deeper for just one moment, which I want to talk about. And that is, even though we have that control over the kit here, we also have these multi-channel kits. And we'll load up the same one that we have, the Retro Rock. And when this is loaded, we actually have access to all of the microphones for the kit. So I can come through. Let's go into the chorus for a second. Here's our room mics down at the bottom here in room A. We have a leak that mimics what microphones sound like when they're all recorded simultaneously from a drum kit. And we have other things as well. This is a big deal because it means we actually have access to all the individual components and can load different ones or process them differently. When we're doing this inside Suno, one of the biggest things that's actually really difficult is if you want to mix this or make it sound different, you already have reverb stuff baked into it. You can't take it out easily. It has any sort of mimicking of processing. And I say mimicking because, with this type of generation, It's not actually, it's not setting up a console and playing this with like EQ and compression. It's doing it a different way. And so you don't have access to any of that. In fact, with the Logic one of the coolest multi channel kits would be the unmixed one, which would give you the entire kit without any effects or anything else on it. So you can start from scratch and build it however you want. That's really powerful. Also, one step that Apple could add that would make that similar to Suno is a prompting system that says, hey, I like my drum kits, but could you increase the compression on all the normal parts to make this sound more like a classic rock type mix? And then it would implement all those things. Is that possible to do? Of course, that'd be possible to do. Are they doing it? I don't know. I kind of feel like they're probably not. But it would be something that would revolutionize Logic to be more like something like Suno, and then we'd actually have a lot more functionality from it. Okay, so with Logic, we have probably, a million times more control over the drums, but it's not simple. Suno, simple. You end up with like decent results in the final song most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. We have the ability to do endless prompts in Suno until you get it just right. So there is that. You could continue to try and try and try. With Logic, you can tweak and manipulate and change and do pretty much whatever you want. The last thing I'll talk about, and this is something that is with both programs, with Suno, they're working on it. I don't know if it's getting any better yet at all, but they're working on it. You can get MIDI from the drums. And I would say 50% of the time it's a coin flip as to whether you're going to get something useful. Likely not going to have all the different notes in here. It just doesn't work all the time. It's pretty rudimentary. But in here, I can also come through and say, I want to convert to MIDI. And all of a sudden I've got MIDI, and this is the exact MIDI from the performance because it was using MIDI all along. And so we have accurate MIDI. So I can come through and change this kit performance however I want because I've got the MIDI capabilities there. Okay, well, this is not in and of itself an argument to use Logic's drummer over Suno drummer. This is just one aspect. With the session players in Logic, we have the drums, the keys, and we have the bass. All three of those in the styles that Logic has, I would argue, are better than what Suno has in terms of sonic fidelity. Now, in terms of creative implementation, Suno wins hands down across the board because Logic just doesn't have that part. It's relying on the human element to do that. And until they give us more styles, the keyboard itself needs a bunch more. We need things like an organ implementation. We need things like an electric piano implementation. We need more than just the basic styles it has. The bass, it'd be great to have some more too, but basses are pretty basic and Suno even. And so those two, I think, kind of cancel each other out. If we have the right chords inside here, great. That would be the other thing with Logic. The minute they would do some sort of implementation with a prompt system for the chords, where you could say, I want to do like this style, give me like a typical chord thing for that. And then you could say, I want to change the chords for this or this or this, or import an audio file and have the chords be auto-analyzed and dumped into the chord track. The minute any of those things happen, the bass and the keys are easily better than what Suno has because we can go through and convert them to MIDI. We could, mix them. We could do a note at a time. There's no baked in effects. And so there's that. What we're missing is all of the rest of that. We don't have guitars in Logic. We don't have brass or strings. We do have those instruments, just not the session player capabilities of controlling them. And so, if we needed those things, then Suno, or playing them on a keyboard, or recording them with musicians. Um, but the time and efficiency of Suno right now is far superior to what Logic has in those areas. The last thing will be vocals. While we don't have vocals in Logic directly, we have access to lots of third-party things. And matter of fact, that would work for the guitar stuff as well. We could use a third-party guitar system, but Suno has the vocal thing down. The vocals in Suno sound better than they've ever sounded. And so that's something that we don't even have a vocal thing in Logic at all. So vocals, okay. All the other instruments, okay. But if we're looking at the session players and the control that they offer, they're the best. So for the moment, I would say I'm still going to stick with drums in Logic. Because I still think it gives me the most power and control to make them sound how I want to. But Suno, it's a great partnership. I can bring the tracks into Logic. I could even use this stem extract in Logic if I wanted to, just to pull out the drums and then put on Logic drums, and I'm going to be able to get a better product, I believe, in the long run. Okay, hope this look at these two things was helpful. We will look at some more of these other things as they come out and as Suno continues to improve and get better. But for now, they're just different. And while I feel like the drums, specifically in Logic, are still superior, there's a long list of things that I wish that they would add: more styles, more drums, and the ability to do better implementations of a song based off of either prompts or the arrangement track. Okay, that's it for today. Hope this was useful. Thanks. Bye.